We were working open to close 7 days a week because we were living in our mindset, our programming, what we thought we had to do to just get by. Because we had some big dreams, but we did something that I know this shocked a lot of people because no one else has ever done this in the history of the world. We started spending more money than we were earning. We ended up creating total change in our life, and $150,000 in debt, all of a sudden 9 months later being retired financially free at the age of 32. And what most people do though is they're trying to just get by and create wealth at the same time, and they wonder why they get overwhelmed and why they don't do anything, or why they end up getting burnt out, or why they end up having health issues because they're not properly taken care of. Create something that pays you again and again and again. See, that's you trying to do everything on your own. I didn't say you had to do more. I said give more value. So how can you leverage it? Look, learning is one thing, and I'm going to give your listeners three very big keys if they want to be able to accelerate their growth and their success.
Welcome to another episode of the Leading Boldly podcast. I'm Matt Clutterham.
And I'm Jenny Jarvis.
We've got a superstar here for you today. Robert Raymond Riopel, based in Alberta, Canada, known to his friends as the Aerodynamic Dude, or R3 for short, is the best-selling author and podcast host of Success Left a Clue. Robert started out as a driver for Domino's Pizza, and using the teachings of New York Times best-selling author T. Harv Eker, he went from over $150,000 in debt to financially free in just 9 months, retired by the age of 32. It was that led him to become the lead trainer for Harv's programs, and now dedicates his life to helping people all over the globe with their mindset growth and development. We're proud to have Robert as our mentor and friend, and we'd like to welcome you today, Robert, to the Leading Boldly podcast.
Thank you, dude. I had to pause for a moment and think, is he talking about me? Oh my goodness, it makes it actually sound like pretty impressive. I'm happy to be here. And how are the two of you doing?
Really
we're
good.
Great. Yeah, we're great.
Really excited to talk to you. You're not actually in Alberta, Canada at the moment, though, are you?
No, I am finishing off a 13 city, 11 country in 16-week tour. And so it's been a grind, which a lot of people don't even understand that what does it take to be successful? There's times you have to grind. And so I'm at the tail end. I'm in Krakow, Poland right now with my final event, actually next weekend in Barcelona, Spain. And then I'm taking a good couple months to go camping at home with my beautiful bride.
Yeah, so camping is a real passion of yours and your wife, and you've got some lovely animals that you take camping with you. Tell us about the entourage.
Well, we have our 6 cats, and yes, they do go camping with us. We have our 2 dogs, of which, one of the delays in camping this year will be because our golden retriever just had 10 puppies, 10 of them. They say the first litter is usually 4 to 8. She's obviously an overachiever, so she had 10. They're now 5 weeks old, so we're now in the process of selling them and finding great families for them. But our 2 dogs go camping with us. And of course, there's Gracie May, our 265-pound pet pig. And yes, you heard that right. She gets the whole back seat of the truck, and she comes camping as well. But the thing is, she doesn't know she's a pig. She thinks she's a dog. She's actually a princess, so don't tell her any different.
Now, we have actually seen photo evidence of pig in camping.
And I probably even shown you pictures of a pig in a blanket, because she gets her princess blankets covering her and everything.
And who doesn't love pigs in blankets?
Right, exactly. But we don't eat her.
Yeah.
People say, they go, well, you have a pig as a pet. Do you still eat pork? And I'm like, I'm a meatitarian, so yes. And actually, when we cook bacon, Gracie May's like, it's her. She loves the smell. And we're like, Gracie, stop it.
I bet she does.
Brilliant.
Do you want to ask the more sensible questions today?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So that's a pretty amazing story. 150,000 in debt to financially free, but rewind a bit for us before that. What was going on?
Well, my wife and I, out of necessity, taught work hard, stay loyal to a company. And even if you don't like the job, if you're supplying and supporting your family, you do it. And that's what I grew up learning to do. And So I'm finding jobs. I started working really, really young, even way back at 9 years old, being a paper boy, if you call that as work. And 11, believe it, Matt and Jenny, this will kind of blow you away. I look at it today and I go, who in their right mind would do this? But when I was 11 years old, I actually spent my summer, Monday to Friday, babysitting 3 kids for 8 hours a day. 3 kids, and I was only 11. And one of the kids was actually just over a year old in diapers. And that included me having to make sure I was changing diapers. I was actually making lunch, and I had to have supper ready for when the parents came home. And I did that 5 days a week at the age of 11. I look back now and I go,
that's
who would do that? Well, now it is. But as you can tell, I am a little bit older than, that age now. So, of course, rules have changed. They called it child slavery back then. But rules have changed over the years. But when I started my real work, I by the time I was 21, I'd actually worked for 3 different companies and was laid off from all of them. And I'm like, but I'm working hard. I'm staying loyal. And out of necessity, because there was no work when I laid off the 3rd one, I started delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza. From there, being a driver, I became a manager. My wife became my assistant. And we went back into our program and we started working hard. In fact, we were working open to close 7 days a week because we were living in our mindset, our programming, what we thought we had to do to just get by. Because we had some big dreams. Because of our work ethic, we were actually able to become franchisees at the age of 23, which at the time was the average age of a franchisee in Domino's Pizza. Because you couldn't just buy a store, you had to prove you knew how to run one. And we were qualified, and we actually bought 2 stores with no money. And we became franchisees, and it was like, oh, successful. We're entrepreneurs. But we did something that I know this shocked a lot of people because no one else has ever done this in the history of the world. We started spending more money than we were earning. And I hope your listeners don't shut off at this point going, oh, why would he do that? All joking aside, we know a lot of people do that. And by the time we were franchisees for 8 years, because of our spending habits, we were over $150,000 in personal debt, going down quickly. And that's kind of what led us to finding personal development, which changed our life, as you mentioned earlier. And because of one 3-day training, we ended up learning why we were in debt. But more importantly, we realized to take ownership of our debt. I was good at blaming other people. Because of them, I lost this money, or they said to do that investment. It was always someone else's fault. So the moment my wife and I started taking responsibility for our own debt and then learning what we could do to get out of it, by putting that into practice, what we learned, we ended up creating total change in our life. And $150,000 in debt, all of a sudden 9 months later, being retired financially free at the age of 32. And our minds went, that worked.
What did you do exactly? Because I know it had something to do with some jars, because me and Matt are following some jar systems too. But what exactly did you do to get to that point?
Understanding. And right now, Jenny, I'm lit up with goosebumps because you even asked that question. And it's because it was the lack of understanding. You don't know what you don't know. And my mind was financial freedom means we have to be wealthy. And most people think that's what financial freedom is. But the actual definition of financial freedom is when you have something called passive income, which is money working instead of you. If you have more passive income than the expenses you have, so meaning if you're not working, but you can still pay for your expenses, you are financially free. And so my wife and I, the biggest changes is we were trying to have all the toys. The more successful we got, the more things we wanted. So we had a lot of expenses. And because we didn't even know what passive income was, there was no way we would have to work for the rest of our life. And so from our understanding, we decided, what don't we need right now? Sure, we may want it, but what don't we need that if we were to get rid of it, we'd lower our expenses? And if we could start with this passive income thing, what would it take for the two to surpass? And so at that 9-month mark, with 2 passive incomes, all of a sudden we had more money coming in each month than the expenses we had going out. So we still had debt, but we had enough money to service it where we didn't have to work. So now we were technically financially free, barely making it by, but we didn't have to work. And so that's what I want people to really understand right off the bat is financial freedom isn't in 9 months I became an instant millionaire. It was my wife and I had enough passive income that our expenses were being covered every single month, whether we worked or not. And that brings a load of weight off your shoulders, because I know some of your listeners are going through financial stress right now. And they're going, I could do it, but I can't become a millionaire. I have too much on my plate. Just understand, keep it simple. And we'll talk about that. I'm sure you guys have some great questions on that. Keep it simple, because what we didn't realize, not knowing, is the moment we had that financial freedom, all of a sudden we got that benefit of time freedom. We went from working over 60 plus hours a week in our business to earn a living, to all of a sudden having 60 plus hours freed up every week. And I don't know about you two, but if you had an extra even 20 hours a week to just do what you want to do, is there some stuff you guys can do with that time?
Oh, we can fill time in the best of ways, no problem.
Yeah. And that's where my wife and I went, wow, we're not working now. We've got all this free time. And that's when we committed to take 10 hours of that, not 10 extra hours now. We just freed up over 60. So let's take 10 of it to create wealth. And all of a sudden there's a universal principle that says what you focus on expands. Or another way of saying is where attention goes, your energy is going to flow and your results are going to show. And because we now put 10 hours a week, freed up time towards creating wealth, all of a sudden the wealth creation became so easy. And what most people do, though, is they're trying to get by and create wealth at the same time. And they wonder why they get overwhelmed and why they don't do anything, or why they end up getting burnt out, or why they end up having health issues because they're not properly taking care of themselves.
I know this is a huge question. We've not even started on the questions on the list yet. I know this is a huge question, but and there's many answers. But what are your sort of top couple of favorite ways to make passive income?
Oh man, nowadays AI, because instead of me trying to do everything myself, my business partner and I, as an example, we're about to do a new project. And we are prompting the heck out of AI, and it's designing everything for us. And so to kind of answer the question, though, I'd say this: create something, one, that pays you again and again and again. And on my phone, I have it by the window trying to give me better internet. I have for a couple of my passive incomes that people can buy online, whether I'm sleeping or not. And every time one comes in, using a program designed by one of my students in Europe called DigiStore, everything gets linked to that. And so anytime something's sold, my percentage comes into my bank account and my phone goes cha-ching, the cash register sound. And I love waking up in the morning and seeing all of a sudden, oh, look, there's 25 cha-chings last night. What a great way to start the day, that while I was sleeping, all of a sudden this money was coming in. So for me, creating things that I don't have to do over and over and over again to keep making money with it. I can create it once and it keeps making me money. And two, taking the time to actually be creative by saying, how can I help others? And by helping others, there's, go to another universal principle. You will be paid in direct proportion to the value you give, which means if you're not making as much money as you'd like right now, are you giving as much value as you could? And I know in your listeners' minds right now, they're going, well, Robert, you don't know my life. I don't have enough time to give more value. See, that's you trying to do everything on your own. I didn't say you had to do more. I said give more value. So how can you leverage yourself? How can you leverage what you're already doing so it takes less of your energy, but more people can be served? That's how you're going to increase. So I hope that it kind of answers your question for you.
We live in quite different days now to like when you first started this, and things are different. So what did you choose back then?
My first two passive incomes were actually, I had met someone in the 3-day program, and they, we'd just been taught about this thing called passive income, and we had played a game where we exchanged information with people, and I liked what this guy said, so I gave him my email address. And because after the training, I was back into business, I was busy. He'd emailed me a couple times, and the only reason I kept his emails was because he was funny. He had the same word sense of humor I did. So I'm like, I got to definitely connect with this guy. Yeah. A couple weeks later, I said, hey, sorry it's taking me so long. But I love your emails. What is it you have? And he introduced me to two online passive income. My wife and I took a look at it. We did our due diligence and we went, okay, this sounds cool. And it was those two online ones that back in the day, this is back in 2001. I want everybody to understand, not when technology is the way it is today, but so where you can instantly do things online. We had to put a lot into it and really to our own energy and investigation. But those two passive incomes, one had a kind of a stock portion to it, where when we first bought some of the stock, they had gone from $1 to $3. We got in at the $3 level and we're like, will it go any higher? And we felt it would because we did our due diligence. And also over the next couple months, it went from $3 a share up to $30 a share. And we're like, holy crap. And I don't mind giving real numbers if you want me to give real numbers to your listeners. We had found a way to put $6,000 into it. So at $3 a share, that's like 200 shares. When it hit the $30 a share, that $6,000 is now worth 60,000. Not a bad return whatsoever. When it hit the 30, because things slowed down on it, the stock did something we had never heard of. It did a split. It did a 30-to-1 split. So our 200 shares at $30 each became 6,000 shares at, or 60,000 shares at a doing the math, whatever. It ended up being we ended up 30 times the shares. So 6,000 shares at $1 a piece, or 60,000 at $1 a piece. And as soon as it hit $1 a piece, the buying went crazy again, and it went back up to $3 a share. And all of a sudden, our original $6,000 investment ended up being $180,000, and that happened in a few months. And we started taking some money out, and by the time we kind of took it all out, because we were starting to live off of that, we had ended up being able to gain over $200,000 off that one investment. Now, we knew passive income was good, but at the time, we didn't know how to make sure it was permanent. What makes a good passive income? And so by the time we pulled out, all of a sudden it did go downhill, and it didn't last any longer. But luckily, A, it had given us a great return, and B, in the same time, we had started some other passive income that replaced it. So we maintained our being financially free. And so today, kind of from that knowledge, any passive income I go into, whether it's real estate, whether it's online marketing, whether it's stocks or whatever, I'm looking for not only passive, but I'm looking for what makes it permanent. Because I don't want to have to keep recreating, finding a new one. If I'm finding something new, I want it to add to my existing already doing well portfolio, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely. So you've talked a lot there about a 3-day program. Yeah, Jenny and I have both been through it and come out the other side. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah,
because you now train that, right?
Tomorrow morning, I start training it again, actually, right here in Poland. Yeah, it's called the Millionaire Mind Intensive, designed by New York Times bestselling author T. Harv Eker, who I happen to be blessed to become his very first protege. That course changed mine and my wife's life so much that we went on to do all the programs he has. And that's where I found my passion was to teach. And because of my tenacity, even though he had been looking for trainers, he had never found one, to the point I became his very first trainer. And so for the last 20 years, I've been blessed to teach his training all over the world, not just the Millionaire Mind, but I've taught every one of the trainings he's designed, and there's like 17 or 18 of them. And I've trained thousands of trainers now how to train as well, getting to live my passion, traveling the world, having a blast.
Amazing.
We were so impressed with it that we signed up to some of the other trainings. So we're very excited to be going to Amsterdam in a couple of weeks and learning all the stuff that you've learned as well. And, we know we've learned a lot over the years, but as you talk a lot in the training, learning doesn't stop when you've learned something.
Look, learning is one thing, and I'm going to give your listeners 3 very big keys if they want to be able to accelerate their growth and their success. The first thing is learn. When you learn something, you're going to get it at a certain level. The neurons in your brain, the dendrites that are being created, that'll give you a certain level. But then the second thing you've got to do is do it. Do it. Because by doing something, it becomes from theory to practical, which fires new neurons, which ingrains in more cells of your body, because now you're in the habit of doing, you're practicing. And this is one of the biggest mistakes most people make. They get caught up in, well, I'll learn. And they never do anything with it. And that doesn't do any good. And so going back to the value, you guys mentioned you're going to be at a training in 2 weeks. I can't even offer that training this weekend, because it's sold out. It's oversold.
Amazing.
And so when you talk about, you will be paid in direct proportion to the value you give. So think about this, because you guys are going to be able to be there. Don't just take notes, but ask yourself, what's one or two things we're going to put into practice the moment we go home? The do, so that you actually ingrain it on that deeper level. Instead of getting overwhelmed by, because there's going to be a lot of information. Don't go thinking you have to get it all. And there's a big mistake why people think they have to learn, is they're trying to get everything. Look for 1 or 2 golden nuggets, but then do it. Put it into practice, create that habit. And as you do that, if you want to take it to the whole new level, then that's step number 3. Teach it. Teach it. Because would you two agree, when you teach something, you get it on a totally different level, right?
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's one of the reasons I teach now, is because I'm learning new stuff. So I want to teach it as quickly as I can, so I get it on a deeper level, because I will never, ever quit being a learner. I'll learn for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jenny's highly trained as a coach and NLP specialist. I work with companies on brand. I'm a trained brand strategist. So we've been through the training. We've put it into practice on our own thing. But my God, like we learn so much every day working with our clients.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. When you're teaching, you're learning at the same time, because people will come up with things that maybe you didn't experience. And all of a sudden, now you're helping them solve it. You're going, dang, I'm glad I didn't go through that. I'm learning it this way, right?
Yeah,
and how
we went to the
beautiful
client
is that?
today, and Matt's going through all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, we need to go and do that.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. That's exactly it. And people they miss the magic of that. And see, again, it comes back to the value you're giving. If you've got great information that you're holding back for yourself, thinking I can't share it because then others will have an advantage over me, that's being selfish. And I'm going to be very clear on that. That is one of the most selfish things people can do. If you've got a competitive mindset, instead of being competitive, go to collaborative. How many people can you help? Because I've taught thousands of trainers, as an example, one of the first things I want them to know is, most trainers don't want you to be as good as they are, because they want to have that competitive advantage. Well, I want you to know up front, I don't want you to be as good as I am. I want you to be better. Because if you're better than me, because if you look at it, I've now personally trained over 500,000 people in live training. So I've impacted their lives, but whose lives have they gone on to impact? That tidal wave, right? Not just a ripple effect. I want a tsunami effect. And I've done over $100 million in sales from the stage. So if you can outdo me, how many people have you helped?
Yeah, no.
That's what gets me excited, because I'm going, dang. And so when my students come back and give me the result that they're doing, I become their greatest cheerleader. I'm like, go. Well, aren't you afraid of being outdone? Hell no.
Yeah.
The world is abundant.
Absolutely. Our listeners and our watchers will absolutely be in no doubt that you're a guy that likes to live and work with passion. You're coming across with passion right now, as you do.
I am.
All the time.
I didn't think I was.
And you talk a lot about living and working with passion. So the listeners will want to know, because I want to know, on those dark days, on those days where it's not going right, where you're feeling low, how do you continue to live with passion through those moments?
First, you got to give yourself permission to have the down. That's number one. To think your life's always going to be happy, joy, happy, joy. No. There's, and this is where having support system around you is so important. The people around you that they're willing to not only pick you up when you are down, but some of them, they know it's not time to pick you up. It may be just a person there that if you need to speak and be heard, they're there to listen. So, my wife, of course, my greatest coach, my greatest mentor, my greatest reason why I do what I do, she's one of those support people. My business partner is the same thing. And we have actually an agreement that if we need to call the other person, we'll text and say, hey, can you get on a call? And if that kind of text comes in, we'll do whatever we can to make room. And when the call comes through, we don't just go right into what's going on. We ask a question first. If he's calling me, I'll say, are you looking for solutions? Are you looking to brainstorm? Or are you looking for me to listen? And he will tell me what he needs. If he's looking for solutions, he's going to tell me what's going on. I'm going to just give him my advice. If he wants to brainstorm, we're going to get into what we call flow state, and we're just going to brainstorm. But if he just needs me to listen and he says, listen, I shut up. And if we're on video, I don't sit there and I understand. I just sit there and I look at him and I watch him. I let him just get whatever out. When he's done, he'll say complete. And at that moment, we hang up the phone. No other chit chat. No other, brother, are you okay? It's going to be better. That was not why he called me. He needed me to just listen while he said what was ever going on. So having those people around you is so critical. But if you don't give yourself the permission, first of all, to have the down days, when you do have them, because you will, you'll beat yourself up even more. And so that's kind of what I would advise to people is give yourself permission, know that you can have them, have the support system around you so that when you go through it, you can have the people there however you need them. And then just know that this too will pass.
Yeah.
And you've had some pretty tough days. And I will ask you about that in a second, but I also wanted to let the listeners know that you've been with your wife since you were like 13, 14. It's an amazing love story. Like, it's brilliant to watch you talk about her because you're so passionate. You know, you've been together forever, literally forever. But she has supported you through some pretty shitty times.
Yes, absolutely. Look, 13 is when we met. 16 is when we started dating. We got married when we were 19, or I had just turned 20. And actually this past Monday, we just celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary before I flew here to Poland. Yeah. And you're right. We have, as an example, I'll tell you, 3 days after we got married, my wife ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks. She had planned our whole wedding. We're both the youngest of our families and poor families, so we paid for our own wedding. She did all the planning. We did it all. And so when she relaxed after the wedding, it triggered her type 1 diabetes that we didn't know she had. And she ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks. And I internalized marrying me made her sick. Didn't even know it for years. And I became her protector. I went from my wife, who is one of the strongest women I know, to all of a sudden, I didn't realize I started stealing her power from her because I wanted to protect her. Honey, you're not feeling well. I'll go to work today. You stay at home. Yeah. And it wasn't until we started doing personal development that I realized what I was doing. And I had robbed her of her power. And I had to be willing to step back and go, you are the amazing woman. I need to allow you to be that amazing woman again. And so that was a tough journey to come to that realization, for sure. That's just one example of it.
That is such a brilliant lesson. And it's one that that me and Matt went through a bit at the training, because there was a specific exercise that we do. And as soon as you said we were doing it, I went to Matt, you're not doing that. And he was like, oh, this isn't helpful.
Yeah, I was like, not only have I got my own doubts, but now the person who's supposed to be supporting me is telling me that I can't do it either.
Yeah.
Came from a place of love, but actually it was just me disempowering him completely.
Yeah.
And I stood up at the seminar and talked to you about it, and we talked about it, and we got in the car on the way home and we had a conversation about it. And it was exactly what you've just said, that disempowering of our partners. And I think that a lot of business owners probably do that with their partners too, in one way or another, where you get home and you go, oh, I don't want to talk about work, because you think your partner's not going to understand. Or the partner saying, I don't want to hear about your work because I've got my own stuff going on. And I think those things can be really disempowering, particularly from a business perspective.
Yeah. And that is so true. And that's why, especially when people want to be a trainer, one of the things I tell them is your vulnerability can become one of your biggest strengths, because the reason I can do what I do on the stage is because I've gone through it. I don't try to teach people out a theory of what should or shouldn't work. I go from what I've experienced in my own life. And one of the kind of pitfalls, especially couples that work together, learn together, play together, do everything together, is one of the pitfalls of getting into personal development is often you start analyzing and processing each other. but we're all going to go through that journey. And so it's having a commitment and an agreement that, you know, if it's getting to the point of, instead of getting upset saying, don't analyze me, we're not in a seminar, saying, okay, interesting, I feel this is what's going on. And just, you know, being able to have that communication in place. Because I'll tell you, there's no one that can piss me off more than my wife, and vice versa. But we also have a commitment that we are together for life. And that if it doesn't matter in 5 years from right now, does it really matter now? And so that allows us to have our conversations and being willing to, whether it's a yell, scream, cry, whatever, breakdown, we have that commitment to be there with each other. Because very few couples, and it sounds like you guys are similar to my wife and I, we work and play together. We're our best friends, as well as our greatest loves of our lives, right? But it doesn't mean it's always rainbows and puppy dogs and kittens and all that.
There's lots of puppy dogs for you, though.
Lots of puppy dogs right now. Which, look, my wife's going, we're keeping some. I'm like, no, we're not. Already have enough animals. But then I love it because then the creativity comes in, because she wants to be a breeder, and the stud that we had for breeding our dog, he was living in what's called a I'll send it. There's a name for it. It'll come back to me as soon as I quit thinking about it. But the woman she owns the dog, but she has a family that actually the dog is that family's dog. She didn't charge them, but they take care of the needs, the upbringing, the all the health. And anytime she needs them for stud services, she goes picks them up, and it allows the family to have a dog without having to have the expense of paying for a purebred dog for $3,000 or $4,000. They just they love it. It's a family pet, and they take care of all the vet bills. But because it's a moneymaker, she says, okay, I'm about to breed the dog. I need to pick him up for 2 weeks. She goes pick him up, and that home. So my wife's already coming up with the alternative method of, because she wants to keep the 3 girls out of the 7 puppies. And so each one of them will be in one of these homes where when it's time to breed them, we'll go pick them up. We'll have them for a couple months or 3, it'll be 3-4 months from the breeding to then the birth, and then when the puppies and all that. And then might keep 1 or 2 of the boys to be studs, but they'll all have these homes where they're not actually with us, and other people get to appreciate them and have loving families, and get spoiled rotten, at the same time. So
now, listeners, watchers, there is a passive income model that you're not going to see on Instagram or TikTok today. So
right, exactly. Well, and think of it, let's do the numbers here. We just had 10 puppies in Canada. They go for our breed of puppy, being golden doodles, $2,000 to $3,000 per puppy. And because we have rare black and rare what's called Merrill puppies, they can be $3,000 to $4,000. And she had 10 puppies. Do the math. So we could sell them all and profit a nice 20,000 plus, after all the expenses and everything, still profit that. Or we could sell some of them, make some nice profit, and then, the stud at $1,000 per stud service, if they're breeding, studying once a month, that's not a bad passive income. Another family taking care of them, taking care of all the expenses, so it's sheer profit to us to go pick them up, take them to where he needs the stud, drop them back off, and collect money. And because of we love animals so much, they will not go to these homes unless we know they are going to be well taken care of, well loved, and because animals deserve all the best in the world. It's not like, hey, we want to run a puppy mill. We want to make sure the animals are truly taken care of and loved. So that's kind of, that's creativity right there.
And that's a really important point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I love that my wife's thinking that way of instead of us having to have them with us, they will be with these families.
Excellent. So you're giving us tons and tons and tons of value here, Robert, but you've also put tons and tons of value into a book, haven't you, called Success Left a Clue. So tell us a bit about that. Or why not start with the action?
It's give us a clue. And because clues are all around us to success, and it's about noticing them. So throughout the book, and I'll tell you, it was a 15-year procrastination, right? Because like most people, I am a professional procrastinator, which is another reason I continue to learn. And I put myself in position where I don't have the possibility of procrastinating nearly as much as I normally would. And so in the book, I have a lot of clues all the way through it to success, but I also give great actionable steps to take. At the end of every chapter, I actually give action steps because I don't, again, want people to just read the book. I want them to read it, then do the action. And some of the chapters, I even start the new chapter by saying something like, hey, did you do the last action? If not, stop reading right now, go back, do the actions before you read anymore. Because I know people are like me, they're creatures of habit. And they just want to blow through it and, oh, that was nice. Don't take the book, put it on the shelf, and make it shelf help. That's not what I want you to do. I want you to make it where you're actually using it. Matt, I'm glad that you got my joke there and you actually cracked a smile.
Yeah.
I have a terrible sense of humor, but if you laugh, it makes me feel better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a great phrase of yours that I absolutely love, and I've taken it forward into life, much to Jenny's disgust, which is, do you want to, play it cool and be reserved, or do you want to have some fun and be rich?
Right. That's right. Yeah, you can be really, really cool and really, really broke, or really, really rich. I'd like to have fun. And when it's not just about the money, is what people have to understand. But so many people, the stress of money, having the lack of it, and having a lot of expenses, it pays a price on all areas of your life. So why not get the money part taken care of so you can truly live the passionate life you want to live? And, the freedom it gives you. And I'll give you an example. I've lost both my parents. My mom, it's now been 17 years since she passed away. And it's coming up 2 years ago that my dad passed away. And for both of my parents, I was blessed to be able to be at their bedside when they passed. I was blessed to be able to spend a lot of time with them in their last days, whereas my siblings couldn't because they had to work. They had to, pay expenses, and if they weren't working, they weren't being able to afford to live. And so my wife and I were able to be there with my parents as they went through their final days. And I look back and I go, man, if I was still on my Domino's Pizza working 7 days a week, I probably wouldn't have been able to even attend the funeral. And then how would I feel now years later? And so, I joke a lot about different things, but the freedom that money can give you to release a lot of other strains and stresses in your life, but you got to take care of it. You got to be willing to do what you need to do to take care of that money part, so that then you have the freedom to do what you really want to do.
Yeah.
And you made a really interesting statement there that I'd like to ask about a bit, because I think a lot of people stop themselves from earning more money because their siblings don't, for example. So you've got a different sibling dynamic financially. And how does that feel within a family dynamic? Is it difficult? Is it okay? Has it taken time?
Yeah, all of the above, Jenny. All of the above. In the beginning, especially being the youngest, we would do a training as students, and we want to tell our family about it, and they'd be like, because of course the whole past comes up. You're the youngest. What do you know? And someone gave us great advice. They said, instead of trying to convince others, just start living the change. And all of a sudden, my wife and I, on my side of the family, the first ones to ever own our own home. And on my wife's side, they've owned homes, but they've always had to work. And so all of a sudden we started having the successes. And Domino's Pizza franchisees, they were like, oh, you guys are doing good. And when the day we told them we were getting out of Domino's Pizza, the family freaked out. Because they're like, what are you going to do? And we're like, we don't know. And it's going around the Millionaire Mind Intensive. It was in 2000, in January of 2001. Out of duress, we had to sell one of our stores. And it was nasty. There's a thing that we teach people at one of our courses that says, you will teach others how to treat you. We had 2 stores at the time. And our one store that we didn't want to sell because it was profitable, we wanted to keep it so we'd be making money, and we wanted to sell the other store, but no one wanted the other store because it was in an area that if you bought the store, you couldn't really grow. There was nowhere to expand. So our other store, the one we wanted to keep, though, the only way you could expand at the time was by buying existing stores in that area. So people wanted that store, but they didn't want the other one. And so we were so stressed out that we're like, okay, we have to sell that store. And the gentleman that bought it from us, I will tell you, originally we were playing the victim that he took advantage of us. Knowing what we know now, we taught him that it was okay to do what he did, because he delay after delay, all of a sudden he dropped the price, all of a sudden another delay. And by the time we finally sold the store, we actually carried the financing on the store. Instead of getting a lump sum, we were getting monthly payments, which helped a little bit on some of the things that we owed money on, but it, to maintain, but it didn't pay for what we really needed. And it was terrible. It was nasty. It was stressful. And then we end up going to the Millionaire Mind, and we started learning about this stuff. And we went to the Warrior Camp, which is one of the programs I know I'm going to get to teach you guys that coming up. And we learned so much about our own personal power. We walked away from that camp and we went, we're done with Domino's. And because we made the decision, all of a sudden this store that nobody wanted, all of a sudden 3 people wanted that store. And our parents and our families are now freaking out, going, what are you going to do? And we're like, don't know. But you can't just not have an income. Sure we can. We're now creating passive income. We've got things happening. We know we want something different. We know we're not happy with Domino's anymore. And if we're not happy doing it, that's one of the reasons we're going deeper in debt. So we're going to sell it. And so they just couldn't process it. They couldn't handle it. But we had to put that to the side and say, it feels right for us. And all of a sudden, 3 people want our store. And so we knew we didn't want the same situation as the first one. So we went to the first young guy and we said, look, you're qualified to be a franchisee. So here's the deal. Here's the price, non-negotiable. Here's the possession date, non-negotiable. We'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll tell you everything about it. If you keep proceeding and you meet all the standards, we'll sell you the store. If you pull back, no hard feelings, deal's done with you, we'll go to the next buyer. Are we clear? And he's like, yes. And everything was going great until he had to put down a non-refundable check for $5,000. He was supposed to meet us at a coffee shop with the check, and he didn't show up. And my wife and I are freaking out because now we're going back into the fears and the doubt of what had happened before. But all of a sudden that learning went, we call him up, we said, Eric, what's going on? He goes, well. And I said, okay, deal's done. He goes, no. I said, no, have we not been clear? And I said, the deal's done. And I hung up the phone. And my wife and I are like, what the just happened? Right? But we knew we had to hold to what we said. Because if we don't hold to our word means crap. He phoned back a couple minutes later and he's like, okay, I'm on my way. And we could have said yes, but my wife, she goes, no. She goes, have we not told you everything about the store? Yes. Have we not been upfront with you? Yes. So we've been very clear. Yeah. Well, then you pulled back. So the deal's done. We're going to go to the next buyer. If you still want the store, the price just went up $5,000 and you've got 3 hours to make a decision. Click. I'm looking at her like, I don't know, but I felt like I had to. Minutes later, he calls back. He says, I agreed to the new terms. I'm on my way down. And it was like, holy. Just from mindset and attitude change, the 2 stores went through in totally different ways. Same thing happened with our family. Because as we started living the changes, instead of convincing our family members, all of a sudden, guess who they started coming to for financial advice? Guess who they started wanting to be around to understand what we're doing and why we're having the success? And all of a sudden, the whole dynamic changed. So yeah, it took a while. It wasn't always pretty because it's like, you're the babies. What do you know? We're the experienced ones. And we just had to keep being humble, but stand up for ourselves when needed and just be us and let the transition happen the way it did.
It reminds me of an amazing word that you use for your wife that she does to you quite often. She voluntold you a lot.
Yes.
Yes, I understand that, Robert. I understand
right,
it. Yeah.
Yep. And look, it's one of the greatest gifts we give each other is holding each other to a higher standard, even if we have to voluntold the other to do something.
It's a great expression.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've trained thousands, if not millions, all over the globe, and you like to collect testimonials, many of them handwritten, about the people's lives you've changed. But you've been quite influential in changing some pretty incredible lives and businesses, haven't you? Didn't you once discover that you had played quite a big part in Airbnb and Mind Valley?
Yep. I don't know if people have ever heard of those companies. But one of the founders of Airbnb, Joe Jr., was in one of my audiences with me and T. Harvecker in 2008 in San Francisco. First time we did a Millionaire Mind Intensive there. And because of Guerrilla Business, the course you're going to in 2 weeks, that's where he went home from that program and went to his two friends and said, okay, time to do the business. Here's what we're going to do. And, the rest, as you can see, is where it's at today. And Vision Lakiani, for those of you know who he is in Mind Valley, had no idea how it impacted his life. And it wasn't until over a year later where, we're at a training where I'm hosting and he's one of the presenters and he's blowing everybody away. And I'm talking to him in the green room, just gushing over him and how amazing he is. And he's like, you have no idea who I am and how you've impacted my life. And he told me the story of, him being in my audience. And because of me, he bought the Quantum Leap program and went through the trainings. And because of that, his company was able to turn around from losing 15,000 US a month to having his first $1 million US a month to where it is now worth tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. And the relationship that we created, in August coming up, because we're friends, our partners in the Philippines said, we want to do a National Achievement Congress and we'd love to have Vishen be our keynote speaker. Do you think you can introduce us? And I just on WhatsApp, hey buddy, how you doing? And here's what we're looking at. And I connected him and, now he's going to be their keynote speaker in August. And I'm looking forward to going and hosting that event and being able to connect with them because we've broke bread in many countries around the world where we find we're there at the same time. And those kind of friendships, not where we're always talking, and it might be even a couple of years between talks, but when we connect. And it started off as, I had no idea he was one of 4,800 students that was in an audience in Malaysia in 2008. So, yeah.
Amazing. Like really amazing how you can, it's that ripple effect that you talked about where you just talked to one person that took what you said, took action on what you said, and have created these amazing businesses. And they are amazing businesses.
Yeah. They've added huge amounts of value to millions of other people.
See, and that's it, Matt, right there. Again, going back to the value you give. Like today, you want him to talk for 2 hours. It's $100,000 US plus all expenses. Not a bad little paycheck for a couple hours, and because he's created the value. He's my business partner and I, we were designing something today with, Chat GPT that's going to be coming out, which is we're really excited about. And we talk about the stages that like a trainer goes through or not even a trainer, but a business owner goes through. And he's at the celebrity stage now, where he's now hit celebrity stage where he doesn't have to market. He's in high demand. People are beating his door down saying, we want you. Same with Airbnb. So how do you get there? And it starts off with what we call the grind. You've got to be, that's that action. You've got to be, don't just sit there and go, oh, I now know it. Oh, money come to me. No, go out and put the freaking grind in. And look, again, we talked about at the beginning, I'm doing something unusual that I don't normally do, which is 13 events in 13 countries or 13 cities in 11 countries in 16 weeks. I like my time off. I usually don't go this hard, but because I value the relationship of the people I work with and they've asked for some help, I'm like, absolutely. So I'm doing the grind again right now. Am I always happy? No, but I value the relationships. And if someone says I need some help, I'm going to step up and help them because they've helped me in so many ways throughout the years as well. So we have that friendship, that relationship, that dependency on each other that we know if we need the other person or their company, we can call them and say, here's what I need. And if I can make it work, I'm there. Those are the kind of relationships I love to have.
And you talk about a lot about making those great connections and being connected and surrounding yourself with amazing people. And the companies that you're talking about there is Success Resources and Richard and Veronica Tan. And we met them and they were just very they just walked into the room and shook everybody's hand and said hello. And then Matt goes, I think that's Richard Tan.
Yep. Very unassuming, but I'll tell you, savvy and tough business people, their hearts though, and the way they want to take care of people and the way they want to serve. There's a reason they're the largest production company in the world for trainings around the world. And this couple, they're brilliant. To sit down for a couple hours with them, I love going for meals because I'll just listen. They're some of the humblest people you've ever met. Those are the people I choose to be around because you hear so much about self-made millionaires. There's no such freaking thing as a self-made millionaire. I don't care who you are. You have a great team around you. Quit trying to do success on your own. Quit trying to think you have to do everything. The reason they're able to walk into a room, like you said, and shake people's hands is because they've spent years building a phenomenal team around them. When they need to jump in and get something done, they get it done. It's amazing to watch them in action. But when it's time to sit back and let their team do what their team does, they do, because they don't have to micromanage. They love to be able to connect with the students and just say, what are you getting from this? And that's why a lot of people won't even know who they are until all of a sudden their pictures flash up and they're like, and that's the thing. They don't want people coming up going, oh, they want people to come up and be normal
absolutely.
with them.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
Richard has inspired Matt to start practicing handstands in the swimming pool every morning.
It's true.
There you go.
Hilarious.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, but what you're saying is so key, isn't it, about building relationships? When we work with clients on building brands, and quite oftenly they'll say to us, what's going to be the most important thing about building our brand? Is it going to be the logo, the color? We say no. The most important thing about building your brand is going to be working out who you want to build relationships with, the humans you want to build relationships with, and having a strategy to do that. That's exactly what's going to take your brand further than anything else. And it's the same with personal success, isn't it? It's about who you choose to build relationships with.
Yeah.
And being real.
Yeah, well, and that's why I love that rule of 33. When you talk about who you're surrounding yourself with, don't just look for surrounding yourself with people who've done more than you or accomplished what you want to accomplish, because then that makes you the one trying to and follow up. Surround yourself with 33% of the people being those people, mentors, people to aspire to. Learn from their mistakes, learn from what their journey, so that you can do it even easier and quicker and not have to go through the struggle. Spend 33% of the time with the people that are at the level you're at, because they're the ones that are going to know what you're feeling when you're getting tired and you're getting burnt out going through the grind. So they're going to be able to empathize, listen, and not be judgmental because they've gone through the same thing. So you have to have those people around you, and then have 33% of people be the people that you can inspire, that you can lift, that you can guide, that you can be the inspiration for. And having that mix, because I used to always believe it was, surround yourself with the people you want to be like. But that gets pretty lonely because you're always one chasing. But when you often divide it up, man, talk about being able to create those meaningful relationships. And here's the key. You'll never know who you may be talking to. See, there may be someone that you're inspiring and lifting that in other arenas, they may be the person that has what you've been looking for. And if you create a commitment or a friendship, not over what can you do for me, but of just mutual respect, that's what blows me away the most. Is all of a sudden I'll be talking to people and I'll treat them the same, no matter who they are. And then all of a sudden I find out later that, oh, you're a multi-billionaire. Yeah. And had I known it up front, would I have treated them different? I might have. And I catch myself to not. Because that's me. That has nothing to do with them. That's all me going, think is at different levels. We're all the same. So that's why part of my daily practice is I want to just have conversations with everybody, no matter what level they're at. Because just because they maybe have less success than I do, does that mean they're worse off than I am? No. I guarantee you there's things that they have that I've never been able to accomplish. And so it's about just having that mutual respect and just getting to know them for who they are, not what I can get from them.
Yeah.
I had an amazing day out once, and it was with a DJ, and they said they were a DJ, and we didn't look them up. I didn't know who they were. He told me his name and everything. We had the day, we talked about the PTA and divorce and all sorts of normal life stuff. And then I got home and Googled and went, And he's literally like one of the biggest DJs in the world, has worked with Take That, Paloma Faith, and all the rest of it. And we're sat there going, oh, do you DJ weddings? Or like, what do you do? And he's like, no, a bit bigger than weddings.
And think about this, though, too, is what did you bring to him by treating him like a normal person?
Yeah, he had a good day. He said he really liked it.
And that's it, because if he's probably used to people always, like when I came up to Vishen and I was like, I was gushing on him, like I was fan, and he's just like, you don't know who I am, and you don't know your impact on me. And that was a great lesson for me of like, wow, because we always do put our own judgment on people. We can't help but do it. So can you just be real, authentic, and treat everybody equally as compassionate? Or, hey, if someone pisses me off, I don't care who you are, I'm going to let you know you pissed me off. Oh, Robert, you can't get them upset because they're this. I don't care.
Yeah.
And I can use an example, and I'm not going to use a name, but there was someone that people were just petrified to be around at an event because they might go off on them. And I'm like, if they go off on me, I'll let them know that I don't accept that. I'm not a punching bag. And, well, you can't. I'm like, try me. But because I set my energy, I wasn't setting out you better not, because what do you think would have happened? That would have set them off. I came to them with the energy of confidence and, we're here to impact people and let me know what I can do to be of service if you need it. I came with that energy. And that's a big thing that people don't realize is if you're coming to someone with nervous energy, they're going to reflect. And so if you can come with confidence, not arrogance, confidence, they're going to reflect. If you come with arrogance, they're going to reflect that as well. So I'm always checking in with myself. If there's something I don't like of a way another person's acting or whatever, I don't get upset at them or I don't, judge them. I'm asking myself first, what is it in me that maybe is bringing that out? And if they're just generally a nasty person, then I've got the choice to not be around them. That's my choice, plain and simple. So I take that full responsibility instead of being that victim, instead of playing into the role of, that so many people fall into.
Yeah, brilliant. There's a particular teaching of yours or something you talk about a lot that I really love, that I'd love you to explain to our watchers and listeners. And that's the concept of unconscious competence and developing that to master a skill.
Well, they say it takes 10,000 hours of doing something to master it. And most people, one of the biggest things that we fall into is we learn something new and we think we have to be perfect at it. Because it's been drummed into us all our life to be perfect, be perfect. So again, giving yourself permission to, hey, I'm just learning this. And so when you first learn something, you got to think about it. You got to do it. So I'll use training as an example. When I first started training, I had to consciously be thinking about, when do I raise my hand? Where am I going to be on the stage? When do I need to be my notes? How much versus being having a conversation with the audience? So I was constantly in my head, constantly. So even though I was present, I wasn't really present because I was thinking so much. And it took just sheer, again, and I'll use the example that I know I'm a procrastinator. People cringed that knew me in the beginning when they found out the contract I signed for the first year with T.R. Becker to be one of his trainers. And the reason they cringed is because Harv came to me with a 1-year contract that said, look, I'll pay you a set amount for the year, paid out monthly. If I don't use you, you get paid. If I use you, you get paid. And people cringe because they're like, Robert, that's very little money. But I knew Harv's mindset, and I knew I'm a procrastinator, that I knew the moment he signed, he was going to get every cent of value out of his money. So he was going to use the heck out of me. And my first year, I did 49 full-on events. So I had no choice. I had no chance to procrastinate because I was doing events every weekend, and sometimes in between weekends, I was doing introductory 3-hour talks and stuff. And because of that, in that first year, I went from thinking, because I was studying like a madman, always in my notes, and I wasn't just teaching one program. I want to be clear. I was teaching, I think that first year I taught 5 or 6 major programs. Each of my binders is 200 to 300 pages. So I was studying in my head a lot. But by the end of the first year, I had now had the confidence where the competence went subconscious, where I could walk by my notes, take a glance at the next line, and know where I needed to be, and I can now be connected with my audience, be present. But it took me being, understanding me, procrastinator. So don't give yourself a chance to procrastinate, because if I do, I will. I'll binge watch TV or whatever, right? So don't set myself up for that frustration and that stress, because then what do you do when you procrastinate? Then you beat the crap out of yourself for procrastinating, which really makes it so much better, right? And so I set the scenario up, and that first year I made less money per event than my logistics team made running the event. But I was okay with it, because what it did for my competence and bring it to my subconscious is what I was really going for. So that by the time I renegotiated my contract the second year, I made 50% more than I did the first year and trained less. The third year, I made another 50% more than I did the second year and trained less. And I set myself in a position where now I was able to pick and choose when and where I wanted to train, and I was doing much better financially, because I went through that grind and that getting from conscious competence to subconscious competence.
Yeah. And I think part of today's society and the problem with business is they want to be good and earning £100 million within the first 6 weeks of starting a business. And if they're not doing that within the first year, they just give up.
Yeah. Yep. Because isn't everything instant now? I see it online. Everything online's got to be true, right? And how did they make it happen that quick? And look, I just saw a video, which was a great video. It was kind of a replay from Shark Tank, and it showed this guy being on one of the original Shark Tanks in 2005, I believe. And all of the sharks like, nope. And Mr. Congeniality even said, I'm done with your business. I want nothing to do with it. And the guy's net worth at the time was $150,000, but he had a passion. He knew what he had was going to be valuable. And then it showed him going through. All of a sudden, by the next 3 years later, his net worth was now up to $1 million. All of a sudden, a year and a half later, it was 35 million. All of a sudden, 5 years later, it was 270 million. And all of a sudden, it was the video ended with him going back onto Shark Tank with a net worth of $1.8 billion. But this was 13 years later of hard work. And the sharks were all going, you're coming to sit beside us because you're now going to be a shark, because obviously you didn't get shut down by what we had to say. And he, originally he was looking for instant success, like most people do. Social media is so good at portraying that. They aren't willing to look at stick with something. Because is it possible it could kick off very quickly? Sure. But overnight successes tend to be 20-year overnight successes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You touched on something there in the story about Shark Tank, about having purpose and a passion. How key do you think it is for someone to have a real North Star driving their direction? Oh,
to me, it's critical. It's everything. Yeah. If you don't have a huge why, you're going to get stopped at every little bump in the road, because success is not easy. Don't think it is. It's simple. There's things you can do if you follow it, but you still have to put the work in. And so if you don't have a North Star to follow, every little hiccup is going to be like a major wall in your face, and you're going to stop. So you've got to condition yourself to say, nope, I can take one more step. Nope, good job, but this is what I want. One more step.
Your why?
My why is I just love being able to do what I want with my family. I'm all about family. My wife and I love to spend time. We have a beautiful acreage. We love having huge family gatherings. We love being able to go camping when we want to go. We love to be able to be there if family is in need. For whatever. Another example of that is last summer, my sister-in-law's husband passed away, my brother-in-law. And we were able to be in our RV with my sister over a couple months, helping her through it and helping her, because she didn't know how to handle it. She wasn't equipped. She didn't have a lot of financial knowledge. And we were able to just sit there and put other things aside and say, we're here. That's my why. That's one of them.
Amazing. And that's great and really important to for us to point out, because that why wasn't, clothing every child in the world or make it, it wasn't a huge world-changing why that we see so many business owners that come to us go, I just can't find it. I just can't find it, because they've read Simon Sinek's book, start with why, and they think it has to be some huge worldly goal.
Exactly.
And actually, it can be just as simple as you want to be there to support your family.
Yeah, and my why of being a trainer started off with, if I could help one person do what my wife and I did, go from being financially struggling to financially successful, it'd make it all worthwhile. One person. And now I've trained personally over 500,000, but it started with one. And that's one of the reasons, one of my things I tell people again and again and again, get one done. Because from that, you're going to learn, what does it take to go to another step? What does it take? So just get one done. Don't put yourself 30,000 feet steps ahead of yourself and get overwhelmed and not do anything. What's one thing you can do? I'm big now, especially with my because of my business partner, doing my journal. We created our workbook called 5-4-3-2 Done. And every day, and I never used to be a journaler, but every day I go through and I fill this puppy out. And one of the things I do is I have my affirmations that I write down. From Brian Tracy, I write down 10 goals every day, as if that I've already achieved them. Well, Robert, you've achieved a lot. Why would you need to write down more goals? Because I still have more I want to accomplish. And so we created this because we needed it.
Where can people get that? Is that something that people can buy, or?
We will have it online soon, through Amazon and that, whether you order the PDF or you can actually order a physical copy. I will have to get you guys the information on that, because it's 90 days, 5 days a week. And that's why it's a 5-4-3-2 Done. So we use it like whatever your Monday to Friday is. It's so different for everybody nowadays. But I go by a Monday to Friday. Monday's my 5-day, and there's 5 things to do, and it gives me always different things, plus brain hacks every single day. Then a 4 day is 4 different things that to get you into your mindset, then 3, then 2. And then the done is usually, what are you done with right now that you're ready to finally just let go of, that you've been hanging on to? And then I take the weekend off. I don't journal and stuff like that. Come Monday, first thing in the morning, it's my 5-day, because I do my gratitudes in the morning in there. And again, my affirmations. And we use a very special technique called first letter affirmations. And so as an example, one of my affirmations is, abundance comes to me every day in every way, effortlessly. And I don't write the whole thing out. I use the first letter of each one, because as you put the first letter down, your mind automatically fills in the whole word. And so I can look at all my affirmations, and no one else knows what the hell they say, but I can look at it and go, yep, this is what that says, because I write it down and I put it there. And I love what, Robert Kiyosaki says. He says, putting pen to paper activates another part of your brain. That's why physically we actually have a hard copy, so I'm actually writing in it. So I want to activate that part of my brain instead of just having it typed into a journal online or whatever, physically. And this goes with me everywhere, so that I can have it. And I take notes in there. This weekend, I've got one of my trainers. He's now in a co-lead position. So he's going to do a lot of the training. So as I'm off the stage, I'm going to be watching him, and I'll be taking notes. Because as I'm watching him, I won't try to figure out, how would I coach him? I'll just be watching. If something comes up, I'll just make a note, and then I'll forget about it. So I don't have to try to remember. And then when I go to sit down with him, I'll look at my notes and I'll say, oh yeah, I wrote this down because, and it'll jog my memory. But most people get so caught up in having to remember everything. Quit putting that pressure on yourself.
Yeah, that's such a great tip. That's such a great tip. Because you've got to, because so, as you said, success is hard, right? And part of that is there's a lot to remember.
Yep. That's why you surround yourself with people that are great instead of trying to do it all on your own. Because if there's things that you're not good at, then why do them? One of my mentors, that's what he said. He says, in your business, you are only allowed to do what only you can do. If someone else can do it, they do it. Oh, well, but Matt, Jenny, they're not as good as I am. Doesn't matter. If you're not doing what you're the best at, that only you can do, then you're taking away your time trying to be the best at everything. Let someone else do it, so it frees you up to do what you're the best at. And I always use the example of training, because I contract out to Success Resources. If I take a contract to teach a program, I can't sit there and send someone in my place. I took the contract, so I don't book my flights, I don't do all the other stuff, but I'm the one there that goes on stage, because only I can do that in my business.
Yeah.
So that's a mindset that you've got to have in your business. Well, Robert, I can't afford to have staff. Get freaking creative. Think about this. And let's talk about branding, since you guys, talk to people about brands. If you're helping someone brand, does that mean if you're coaching them on coming up with a brand because you have a system, then are you going to do all the graphic design for them? I hope not. I hope you have a team that does it, right? Are you going to then do all what would be the verbiage for their, their models and stuff? I hope not. Use ChatGPT, use other people to do that. Your goal is to guide them through maybe a questionnaire that you can even and consult them and say, from my expertise, here's what would be a strong brand for you. Wow. And people will then pay you more to do that little piece and let your team do the rest, because the value will be in you doing what only you can do. There's a reason you're an expert in what you're an expert in, because of your experience, your time, and that. But if you're trying to do everything, it takes away from what you're really the expert at and them seeing the power in that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly a conversation we had with a client because of what you said to us just last week. We said, look, only do what you can do. And this is the thing that you can do and no one else can. And everything else needs to go. And he was like, oh, can I do that? Yes. So,
well, especially with today, with AI, what is the quote? They figure within the next 4 years, you'll have the first billion-dollar company that is owned and operated by one person.
Yeah.
Because AI will be doing almost everything. Billion-dollar company that only takes one person, because they offshoot everything to be done by AI.
Yeah, and people are scared by that, but it's coming, and if you don't embrace it, you're the one that's going to get left behind. Well,
and look, I'm going to talk. We just did an interview a few weeks ago with T.R. Becker, and when we asked him about AI, and he said, "Look, I don't know much about it. I kind of went and started learning some stuff because I knew you were going to ask me about it in my interview." He said, "But here's what I realized: it's just the next fad, and either you're going to understand it and embrace it, which is what most people will do, or not." He says, "But the critical key that's missing, don't just understand it, and don't just then go, well, I'm embracing it, so yay. Are you fully utilizing it?" He says, the people that fully utilize it are the ones that are actually going to create the wealth right now. It is such an untapped, multi-trillion-dollar, market out there. We just in South Africa, we had an amazing woman by name Alicia Little, and she was she was teaching people to be AI consultants, where there's companies paying $25,000, $30,000 for you to come in and teach them about AI. And she said, and here's how simple it is to get yourself positioned that way. You don't have to be the best, but if you use AI to do what you need to do, you can consult and they'll pay you $25,000, $30,000. And when we were talking to the audience in South Africa as an example, $25,000 to $30,000, that's a multi-year income for them. And they can do that with one client. Now, here's the interesting part though. People were like, oh, this is amazing. And then she said, so if you really want to learn how to do it, here's my program. Cricket. Because, oh, but I'd have to put work in. You mean I'd actually have to invest some time and money into learning it? It's just not instantaneous. And it's just like mind blowing. I'm like, are you kidding me? If I wanted to learn about AI right now, and I'm in conversations with her, me and my partner, because we know what we want to do. And she's the top in that part. So of course we're going to hire her and work with her, because we don't want to have to figure it out on our own. We want to take our learning curve and skyrocket it. So are we willing to put time and money, effort behind it to learn from her? Absolutely. But in the audience, they're like, hey, what are you doing? I got to do something? Really?
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it blows my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are some activities you're going to do that are going to put the brakes on in your business, and there are some activities you're going to do that are going to hit the accelerator, right? So find the people and the resources that can help you hit the accelerator.
That's exactly
the brakes.
Get out of your own way.
Yeah.
You've mentioned your business partner a few times, and I just want to give Aaron a shout out. So Aaron Huey, I'm actually talking to Aaron next week.
Nice.
Yeah, he was really generous. And this is the thing sometimes, like I went up to him at National Achievers Congress and spoke to him about some stuff. And he said, do you want to have a call with me? And I said, yes, please, I do. And you have to ask and take opportunities that come your way. And so I made the connection. I had to then take action. So it was great that he offered it. And I then had to take the action to book the call and do the call. So we're having the call next week. So I'm really excited to have a chat with Aaron. He's an awesome guy too. You know, the two of you are just brilliant.
I feel blessed to be his business partner.
Yeah.
And, you know, COVID brought us together. We had trained around the world for 15 years prior to, but supporting a community brought us together, and we're like, why aren't we business partners? And because of that shared value system, I just absolutely, my day doesn't start right unless we do our daily call in the morning, because we're on the phone 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. And then if we're training together, even more. And I feel blessed. He's a phenomenal human being, and the value he provides to the world, mind blowing.
We are, I'm conscious that we're taking up your evening now, because you have got, I know you're a very busy schedule at the moment. We haven't talked about the jars. So I suggest that everybody goes and looks at T. Harv Eker's book, and we'll put that in the show notes.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes. And we're going to put a link to Robert's book in the show notes as well.
And also Millionaire Mind Intensive is in London again in July. So people can go and actually find out how to use the jars in person. And I would highly recommend they do that. But we do have some closing questions.
Your audience is probably from all over the world too. So find the Millionaire Mind Intensive, because we do it all over the world, and we do it virtually. Don't just get limited to saying, oh, I can't make it to London, or I don't live in that country. Find out where, because it changes lives. There's a reason I teach it still 20 years later, because it still impacts so many people's lives.
We turned up on the first day going, oh, well, you know, if it's not good, we'll leave at lunchtime. And within 10 minutes, we looked at each other and went, oh, we're staying. It was so cool. And on the second day, Matt said, you know, when we watched like Tony Robbins' I'm Not Your Guru, and went, hell no, we'll never do that. We're kind of doing it. We were on the stage, Matt was like dancing, and we were high-fiving. And it's just like, if you're worried about that, we are reasonably introvert people, and we just fully threw ourselves into it, because you can't not.
It's a practice ground. And it's not saying that when you go back to your day-to-day life, you stay in the high energy, but if you can raise your vibration those 3 days, you come back at a higher vibration, which will attract more of what you want in your life. And so that's the key, is use it as a practice ground. Give yourself permission to play at a bigger energy level, and you may just be surprised at what happens.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Right, what's your favorite bit?
Yeah, so this is my favorite bit of the show, because I get to imitate a section from a famous UK radio show, which you probably won't be aware of. But to those UK listeners, we're going to sort of dive in with a bit of a desert island discs moment, as we always do at the end of the show. So, Robert, I'd love to know the one book, the one piece of music, and the one tool or process that you think's made a massive impact on your life that you want to share.
Oh, wow. So the one book I would have to say I would go to, it was just reminded me the last couple of weeks about it, from one of my mentors, is Mind Power into the 21st Century by John Kehoe. He's now 90 years old, and just amazing gentleman. Now, a fellow Canadian, and a lot of teachings are based from a lot of the big speakers around the world are based on his work. He then followed up with another book called Quantum Warrior, which is a whole new paradigm mind shift. And I'll tell you, when he wrote Mind Power, people told him he was crazy, this is ridiculous, no, this will never work. Within 10 years, people were teaching off of his work, including T. Harv Eker, Robin Banks, who is his biggest Mind Power coach around the world. Phenomenal. And so when he wrote Quantum Warrior, same kind of thing, because it was a whole new paradigm shift, because everything he talked about, he actually in the back of the book follows up with the quantum physics behind it, why it works, how it works on a quantum level. And I'll tell you, when he handed me the book 10 years ago, he said, Robert, I want you to read the book. Tell me what you think. I couldn't get through the first 3 chapters because I was constantly like, and it was messing me up because it was so deep. And I'm talking to John a couple of weeks later, and he goes, what'd you think of the book? And I'm like, I have to get past the first 3 chapters. And he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you. I'm like, you forgot to tell me what? He goes, read the last 2 chapters first, and then read the book in whatever order you want. And I'm like, he said, just do it. The moment I read the last 2 chapters, my mind just exploded, and I blew through the rest of the book, and I just read it in random order. mind-blowing. So if you get that book, you read it, do that. Read the last 2 chapters first, then read the rest of the book in any order you want. It'll change your life. So that's the book. Music, Madonna's True Blue. That's the song that became mine and my wife's song. When I asked her to be my girlfriend and she said yes, that's the song that came on the radio and anchored in as our song. So that's the song. And I don't even remember the last question.
A process or tool that's made a massive difference. I like talking to you. I mean, you teach processes and tools, so you'll have millions to draw on. But is there one that really stands out?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to John Kehoe because one of the biggest lessons I got from him and from Harv and all these learnings is about self-awareness. And so anytime I notice a negative thought, it's not good, bad, right or wrong, supportive or non-supportive. So let's say a non-supportive thought comes in. What John Kehoe says, and you don't have to do it as dramatically, but in the beginning, I suggest that you do to create the habit, because it's all about the habit, is the moment you get a non-supportive belief coming in and you notice it, go, aha, nice try, and then replace it with a supportive belief. Because doing that action, you're teaching your mind that I'm not letting you get away with it. I'm grabbing onto it, getting rid of it, and again, not judging whether it's right, wrong, or what. It's just, oh, this is not supporting me. So in the beginning, especially, do that physical, aha, and be dramatic with it. Because now, when supportive things come up, I can just simply in my mind go, nice try. And it's gone. Because I've conditioned myself that as soon as those aha words come in, my mind goes, no need in even trying to resist. He's got me. And carry on. Right?
Oh
and
my God, how many times am I going to have to use that in the next week?
Quite a lot.
Well, especially because you just set the intention, Jenny, that you're now going to have to use it. Guess what's going to happen? See, you just put out through the universe a challenge to have you use it so many times. Just saying. Hashtag, just saying.
Yes.
That's a brilliant way to end, Robert. That's a fantastic way to end. Robert, we've been absolutely blessed to have you on the Leading Boldly podcast. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure.
Very grateful.
I love being here. So let's see if my Mac will do it. Ready? Here goes.
This podcast actually happened because we just asked you the question. So I really want listeners to take away that you have to ask for things to happen, and then you have to take action on it.
If you don't ask, it's an automatic no. But I'm glad, Jenny, that you're putting that in at the end. The action is what's critical. See, and I just got lit up again. You got me all goosebumped up on this. Because action is key. And that's the piece that most people miss, is they just wish it upon themselves and hope it'll come. You got to move towards it. You got to take the action. You got to do the work. You got to be willing to do the grind when it's time to grind. Then be willing to take the time off when it's time to take time off.
Thank you.
Quick one before you go. If you want to grab a free PDF download copy of my new book, Being Bold, How to Use Brand and Human Transformation to Skyrocket Your Growth, just drop into the show notes where I'll put a link to your free copy.